Hey, what's up guys? So we are going to be talking about and showcasing off the new archetype, the Magi Bullets. And wow, is this deck good, guys? It's probably going to be a very competitive deck. And we only have a few cards as of right now. Who knows how powerful the deck will be once it gets some extra link monsters. But as of right now, this deck is probably one of the best decks that doesn't even require link summoning at all. Everything is a hand trap and everything is super safe in the deck. Basically, your opponent can't get rid of any of your back row because all your back row will be in your hand with the exception of a few cards. Now, how the deck kind of works is you are essentially utilizing 3 cards and you rotate through all of them, and basically one of them makes it so your opponent can't attack into you because you're going to have so much attack most of the time. Some of the cards, yeah, they might have lower attack, but you can also make your opponent have no effects and then you can destroy a card. So most of the time you'll be getting all of those effects in the same turn. In addition to that, they have a lot of potential for extra draw power. Now, we're not going to be seeing the boss monster in here in this duel, simply because the boss monster isn't really needed in the deck. The deck is very strong as is, and you can see everything is hand trap based. The whole deck is all about utilizing your spell traps from your hand, with the exception of Toon Table. Like, what's funny is Toon Table is going to go up in price for sure because of this archetype, because it just gets you so much extra free advantage. Who thought using Toon World or Toon cards, technically there's a Toon World technically that you can use, but in 2017, it's crazy. But the whole archetype, I know that this guy was playing something a little bit obscure, which was these spirals, but it really doesn't matter what you're playing against because you're going to have destruction effects, and on top of that you're going to have the ability to negate your opponent's effects, make their attack 0, and then also you have the ability to make it so your Magi Bullet can actually double its original attack. So that's kind of nice. So you guys will see pretty much during this gameplay here how the whole archetype works is you keep all your spell and traps in your hand. Now this one does have the boss monster, but I'll show you guys all the cards and I'll explain everything, but I want to get the gameplay out of the way so you guys can get a kind of a feel for the deck. But again, even though I know this is not the most meta of decks that we're playing up against, but the only card that I would really consider a huge threat to this is the Draco Slayer Masterpiece. But with the exception of that card, there's not very many decks that can easily just deal with this deck, because this deck, like I said, it's very resilient, and you just get to keep on adding back all of the cards. You can special summon other cards. The other cards will then let you activate your effects. So how the deck works, again, it's all about using your spell and trap cards from your hand, and when you activate them in the same column, you'll get some type of a bonus, whether it's to search a card or be able to special summon another card that lets you get some extra free advantage. So he's going to go ahead and have that effect negated, make the monster have 0 attack. And keep in mind, he can activate the effect of pop, he can activate the effect to actually make you gain a boost in your attack. So pretty much you have 3 cards per turn to mitigate what your opponent is going to be doing. And I'll go in depth and I'll talk about each individual card once we get into the deck profile, and I'll kind of explain things a little bit better here. But anyways, he's going to go ahead and make the card have extra attack, and it's pretty much game. Again, it doesn't really matter what your opponent is playing for the most part, because you're going to have like three negations per turn, I would say, on average, because a lot of the cards will recycle some of the other cards. But anyways, now that you guys have seen what they basically do, they stay on board, and the only thing I would say that really hurts the deck at the moment is any like destruction effects of like board wipes, but you can kind of mitigate that with one of the other cards. So anyways, let's go ahead and go into the deck edit section. Now I have 2 different builds for you guys, and I'll talk a little bit about each different one. But anyways, the first one over here is running a double summon to get extra summons. What's really important in this deck is actually Ties of the Brethren. That just lets you just summon a bunch of them and you're going to be good to go. You don't really go into your extra deck, so again, until they get link summons, you're not going to really need the extra deck, although obviously having it is definitely nice. But basically how they work is each of the Magi Bullets lets you get a free bonus effect. But anyways, let's go ahead and jump into what each of the monster does, and then we'll get into all of the spell and traps and what they do. So all of the Magi Bullet archetype effects are being able to activate spell and trap cards from your hand during either player's turn. So that's really strong. And anyways, so the effect of Calamity, which we're playing 2 copies of in this build, lets you just target a Magi Bullet monster in your graveyard and special summon it. So that gives you some extra cards, and you'll be able to get them into the graveyard relatively easy crazy when you go through some of the other effects, which we'll get into. Next up, we have 3 copies of the Shooter Star. So Shooter Star lets you be able to special summon a level 4 or lower Magi Bullet monster from your deck in defense position. But it doesn't really matter that it's not going to be on the aggressive side, making it an attack position, because you're going to make your opponent either not have a monster by destroying it with one of the other cards, or you can make it so they actually have 0 attacks, so your monster will survive anyways. Next up, though, we have 3 copies of Shooter the Kid. Now, this one is the draw power of the deck, so it lets you discard a Magi Bullet card to draw 2 cards. So it lets you have draw power, and in addition to that, some of the cards actually, you'll be able to utilize them in the graveyard anyway, so even if you need the card, you can get it back in a second, which we'll get into. But anyways, next up we have 3 copies of Shooter Doctor. So this is probably the best card in the archetype. So again, if you're just activating a spell trap card in the same column, you're able to add a Magi Bullet card with a different name from that activated card from your graveyard to your hand. So going back to this card over here, even though you're getting rid of the card, you can get back the card really, really soon anyways. But next up we have 3 copies of Shooter Caspar, and this is one, I'd say this is probably, this and this card are probably the best cards of the deck. They really just make the deck. But Shooter Caspar has the ability, again, the same effect where they're able to activate spell and traps, and then if a spell trap is activated in the same column, you get a bonus effect. So anyways, this one's effect is to add any Magi Bullet card with a different name that you activated from your deck to your hand. So basically, Upstart Goblin is very good. If you're wondering why there's 44 cards in Upstart Goblin, anything that you can just activate, and as of right now, most builds are running Toon Table of Contents just because you can go Toon Table of Contents, activate the effect of one of your Magi Bullet monsters, and then you can activate another Toon Table of Contents on either the one that you're special summoning from the graveyard or from the deck, or if you happen to use Ties of the Brethren, you could just go through all of them and you get all of their bonus effects. So you get huge extra free advantage with that. And then on top of that, you're going to have a large board of monsters, which we'll get into later why it's kind of, well, it's good because you're getting multiple effects and then you're going to recycle their effects over and over. And you just win the advantage game with this deck for the most part. Now this build is playing Magic Planter, so you send one face-up continuous trap card you control to the graveyard, then you draw 2 cards, which can work well with the continuous stuff over here. But I'm not sure if I would consider this a must-have in the deck. It's kind of up to you guys. I feel like this is kind of a win harder because most of the time, if you've activated several of the cards already, you're adding them back the next turn anyways. It's just not really necessary. You also already have draw power with Shooter the Kid. Again, I'm not sure if you guys like it in the build, but you guys can go ahead and check out the other build, which we'll get into in a second. But it's not like a terrible card nonetheless. Next up we have Raigeki. Even though this deck can deal with boards, it's always better to have a free reign on just attacking your opponent with a few monsters, and then next turn when they try to make plays, you just say no to all of their plays. Again, the only card that I would consider like super counter to this deck is Masterpiece, but this card it's a pretty big threat for most decks in the first place to deal with. But yeah, other than that, I wouldn't say there's a direct counter to this deck that's currently in the meta. But next up, we have 2 Pot of Cupidity. Now, there is a downside to this. Obviously, having this card is very good, but once you go for it, then you can activate these, and it's totally fine. But try not to go through your Pot of Desires unless you have to, because banishing these is bad. This is like what actually makes the deck. Toon Table of Contents is actually super strong in this deck. Again, just because it activates all of their effects, and you can activate another one. There's a lot of cards where it's like you can only activate one of them per turn. Like Upstart, if Upstart was at 3, this deck would be even better. But yeah, just keep that in mind when you're using that. And then we have Ties of the Brethren. So this card's really good because the deck doesn't really need to special summon at all. I mean, if you're activating this, you're special summoning the other cards anyways. I know that technically you have Calamity that can special summon from the graveyard, and then Shooter Star, which special summons from the deck. Now, there's only one card that we haven't really gone into, which we'll get into, which is another monster that you cannot summon with it. But pretty much, what you want to do is activate Ties of the Brethren, get out your squad, and then activate your Toon Table Contents on each one. You get a variety. You have the effect to destroy, and then you have the effect to make their attack 0 and negate their effects, and then you have the effect to just double the original attack and defense until the end of this turn. So that can be really strong. But yeah, just keep that in mind when you're going for Ties of the Brethren. You cannot special summon. And also you can't conduct your battle phase, but it's not that bad, especially if you're going first. I think this deck definitely wants to go first because you really want to get off your Toon Table Contents, because once your monster gets negated, you don't have very many follow-up plays. You can, however, prevent your monster from being destroyed with Devil's Deal. However, things like Solemn will be negating their effects. However, they won't be destroyed with Devil's Deal. But anyways, next up we have 2 double summons. It's really important to get out your summons in this deck because yeah, there's really no follow-up plays if you don't have one key card starts everything. But next up we have the Upstart, pretty self-explanatory. Like I said, it's okay to play, if this card was at 3, to play multiple, even though your deck would be over 40. It's just because it activates their effects. Next up we have 3 Toon tables, probably what makes the deck super strong. And then we have 2 copies of Twin Twisters, 3 copies of the Magic Bullet Never Endorphin. So this is the one that lets you double the attack and defense until the end of this turn. The target monster can't attack directly, but that's okay because you're going to be able to deal some damage to your opponent. Another card that can make this deck pretty strong is Honest as well, because after you, let's say, destroy a monster, so they go for 1 play, you destroy it, they go for their other play, then you go ahead and you make its attack and defense become 0, and then their last play to finally get, like, you know, their third option. If you, I guess you could technically have 4 options if you count Honest, but let's say they make another thing, they make another monster that you have to deal with. You activate this, and then you finally have no other option. You still can use Honest potentially, and that's like 4 negations if you want to look at it like that. Like you're stopping 4 of their plays, and every time you're stopping their plays, guys, keep in mind you're going to activate all their effects again, so you can research out all your cards, and that's what makes the deck super strong. But yeah, this card just lets you activate it, so when you're attacking into something or they attacking you, oh, psych, you got double attack. And then next up we have Cross Dominator, probably one of their best cards as far as the spell and trap goes. Yeah, just lets you just go ahead and destroy a monster that's attacking into you, and also it makes their attack and defense become 0, and negating their effects lets you run over a lot of things. And then we have Toon World. This is just kind of there as another card, so you have technically 4 searches out with Toon Table of Contents. This one stops the continuous trap cards. There is another card, I believe, that's like it gets rid of. If someone wants to mention it, I thought there was one that got rid of like continuous spells or something like that. It had some other like bonus effect. You guys can opt to play that if you want to. There was also this card that people were talking about. Toon, is it Toon Hand or is it Comic Hand? Comic Hand. So you can, if you control Toon Word, you can just Snatch Steal. That's pretty good to just steal opponent's monsters. So keep that in mind as well if you want to. Spicy tech, maybe one of them surprise your opponent would be kind of nice. And then we have 3 copies of Death Parado. So this just lets you just destroy a card. And again, even though it's a trap card, you can activate it from your hand. Now again, all of the cards as of right now, they only let you activate 1 of them per turn, but it doesn't really matter because you're stopping like three potential threats already. And then we have 3 copies of Devil's Deal. So this makes it so Magic Bullet monsters you control cannot be destroyed by card effects. And then if this card you control is sent to the graveyard, you get to add any Magic Bullet card from your deck to your hand except for itself. You can only activate 1 per turn. So basically you try to go through this one, and this one every single turn. And that's pretty easy to do because if you just activate anything, you're able to just go ahead and just say, hey, I'm going to either get a free add any card, I'm going to go ahead and add another card that I've already activated in this turn or like last turn, and then you have the ability to just go through draw power. Like the deck is very strong. And then to top that off, you have this to again protect your monsters from getting destroyed at all. And then we have just 1 Solemn Warning here in this build. As far as the extra deck, like I said, it's not really necessary. You can, however, make them, so it's good to have some cards in the extra deck. Now the other build over here that was showcased off, it's using Ties of the Brethren once again, but also using Brilliant Fusion. Which can definitely be good in the archetype, being able to, again, proc their effects, and then on top of that, you have the ability to potentially get 2 extra, well, I guess you have this card plus the extra summons, which just lets you have an extra monster on board, which can be nice. But there's also this card, which is the only monster that we didn't go over. Pretty much all the builds are going to be the same, and there's going to be, okay, this one should have Upstart, even though it's going to be 41, play Upstart, because 1,000 life points to basically get a free proc effect is definitely worth it. But the boss monster of the deck is supposed to be Fiend Zamil. Anyways, so he can be tributed summoned by tributing 1 Magic Bullet monster, and you can activate Magic Bullet monster or spell and trap cards from your hand during either player's turn, just like all of them have it. But during your opponent's end phase, you can draw 1 card for each Magic Bullet spell and trap card you activated this turn while this card was face up. You can only use this effective at once per turn. So again, usually what you do is you activate like 3 cards, and so you'd be able to draw 3. The way I see it though is if you activated like 3 cards with this deck, you probably already won anyways, so I don't think that he is that necessary. However, some of the other support that will be coming out for this archetype can make this deck even stronger than it already is. Maybe it'll make him a little bit more viable, but because it's only during your opponent's end phase, I feel like at that point, it's a win harder card. Maybe a spicy tech throw one of them, but I don't know. Maybe I'll make builds and we'll have some more fun with that. I will definitely get you guys some more gameplay of it, but as of right now, this is just some introductions to the deck. But I think the deck is going to be very strong. A lot of people are already complaining it's the new Cancer deck, it's the new Zodiacs. The way I see it is it's a very strong deck, and it's very like immune to everything. The only thing that you have to really worry about are your monsters, because all of your spell and trap cards, with the exception if you're playing like warnings and stuff, but you're going to negate the card summon anyways with warning. It's a very safe deck. Like, there's really not anything that can just like disrupt the deck really fast, with the exception of maybe like a Kaiju. But would you really tribute like the monsters? Like, you're not investing like very much at all to bring out these monsters in the first place. So even if they Kaiju one of these, you could just have you still like probably have already searched out and gotten a lot of free advantage anyways. And on top of that, your opponent has to respond with another monster, and at that point they're only at 4 cards. You might have like 2 or 3 negations, and at that point it's just not looking too good for your opponent. But definitely looking to be a very competitive deck in the future, and it doesn't even require link summons at all. But you guys know every archetype going to be having link summon cards because it's the new thing, they gotta support it. But anyways, thanks for sending in those replays. I really appreciate both of you guys. Oh, so not Decade. I've got to go and watch replays so I can give the right person a shout out. So Depression, and also over here, VK. Thanks for showcasing off both of your guys' different builds. Let me know what build you guys think is better. As of right now, I think that both are definitely very viable, but knowing my luck with the Brilliant Fusion, I always end up drawing the vanilla, so I'm probably not going to be running it. But yeah, you guys can see the deck was very strong, and it's just very resilient. Regardless if I know the spirals, we're talking about the vanilla spirals, not the spiral. Oh gosh, not the spirals. The agent spirals. We're talking about spiral phantasmals. Like, even though this deck isn't really what I would consider meta, it doesn't matter because you're having so many negations. With the exception of, again, the Peace Draco Slayer, most decks, they're just going to lose to this deck because it's just too much of a threat, and it generates too much free advantage for you. But like I said, let me know your thoughts down below. Do you guys think the deck is OP? I already know people are just saying it's OP, but I want to get your guys' feedback via my channel. I'll get you guys some more gameplay versus more of the meta, except for like the True King, because let's be honest, once that piece comes out, most decks just they can't do anything against it. It's a really nasty card to run to. But anyways, thanks for watching, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed seeing the Spiral archetype, and let me know what tier you guys think this deck is. Are people overhyping it, or is it actually going to be good? I think it's definitely going to be good after just seeing some small gameplay, as well as seeing what you guys said when you guys sent me in some of the info on the deck. But anyways, thanks for watching, guys, and if you enjoyed seeing some of the, I was about to say spirals, if you guys enjoyed seeing the Magic Bullet, drop a like on it, and also, if you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button if you'd like to see more of the new Yu-Gi-Oh decks in action.